I bought these kits a long time ago. As you can see, I did a little bit of customization to it back when I didn't know what I was doing. Just gave him a little bit of weathering. But I never did like the color of this plastic, so I'm going to give him a repaint. I want to do fabric elements now that I know how to do that. Give him some fabric pants and a fabric undersuit. I've done that once already with the Sand Trooper. Don't know if you can see. He's got, fabric in here, except for I did it two separate pieces last time. I put a chest fabric and then fabric on the shoulders. This time I'm going to make a shirt so that the joints are covered. So I went to Ollie's the other day and I found these for like $2. So I grabbed one and I'm going to use this as my reference material. I wanted to check out the pants. My fabric is a little bit off. Looks like I can maybe do some sepia color to it. I can add that in there, and I can do, I think he's got one of these. He doesn't come with it on it. I think in the box he may have one of those. I'm gonna do this color scheme. I ended up using the stickers originally that came with it. I'm gonna peel all that off. It's got all the reference material and the weapons. A couple of different looks for these guys. So that's what we're gonna try to do. So first things first, I guess this guy needs to come apart. All right, I'm gonna start with the pants. I think I will journal that. All right, legs are sanded up. I took the liberty of drawing up a little pattern. It's gonna be large, but I'm gonna trim it down, shape it up. We'll see how this goes. I've got a brown fabric I'm gonna use. So let's do that. So a tip with my patterns, if you're ever trying to make your own, I always go large first because it's easier to, if it needs to be tighter in the legs, it's easier to take this and trim it down than it is to add to it. Otherwise you would just have to trace it, redraw it, space it out. So making patterns, I always start just a little bit larger, trim up where I need it. But we're gonna go ahead and try this one, see how she goes. I always do my patterns corkboard, little pin-up board, got it from Walmart for a couple bucks. It'll last you years. So we'll do a test run, and if this fits, then we will tighten up the pattern, make sure we do the details. See where that leads us. So let's transfer to the sewing machine. Okay, here's the verdict. I got a phone call while I was doing this and I just kept working. I noticed a few areas, so it's good on the legs down here. I'm gonna keep that. It's tight right here. And that's kind of okay, but I just need some space. It's inside of there, I can't work around it. So I want a little more fluff here. A lot of this is gonna be covered anyway with this stuff and the belt, but I want just a little bit more space. And then I'm gonna go with a little more detail as well. So if you can see on this, I'm gonna do the zipper, and then they've got a seam line down there. So I took the pattern, reworked it, added a little more space. It was the second time. This was the original here. I added it here, and then I said, well, so to do that seam line, I need to add a little bit more. So instead of cutting this down and sewing them together, I'm going to fold it over and just run a seam down that way. And then fold it back, iron it out, and then I can sew it up as normal. So we're going to try that and see how it goes. All right, so here's some of the stuff I did for the second one. I worked up pattern, but changed it just a bit. Where did it go? Oh, right in front of me. There it is. So I added this little piece here. So that's gonna act as our fly. I can fold it in. So one piece has it. We'll fold it in, iron, sew it up, and then, like I said, I added this line down the middle. So what I'll do, flip it inside out, sew a stitch. When you open it up, it'll be sewn together right there, and then I'll run a top stitch. This is where the detail stuff comes in. So what we'll do first, the top cannot be, I can't, fold it over and sew it up, make it nice and pretty like a normal pair of pants, because I have all these holes that I have to cut into so that I can attach all of these little specialized pieces. So it's going to be a raw edge top. I'm just going to tuck under the waist like that, but I don't want it to fray, so we use this stuff here. It's called fray check. You just run a little beam. Then I'll need to dig the iron out so I can iron it this over, do it in half. That way we can get all the details going. Step one, there it is. Get the piece ironed over. And for this kind of stuff, I always use a piece of backer paper, because the machine will, as small as this stuff is, it will push it right into the inners here. So there we go. Good enough. So iron it again. This time we got to think about which way it's gonna go. So I need to run the stitch that way, so fold it inside outwards. We'll go right down the center with it. All right, and back over here. There are a lot of angles in the studio. I have not mastered how to get the camera everywhere. All right, this part, it's important if you're doing your own top stitch. So we have to figure out which side of the seam we want to put this stuff on. Let's get us some more light. So for example, we want the pair of pants to have the seam on the same front. So if I run it down this side, since this is going to be our right leg, it's going to be on the front towards the front of the figure. So this leg, we would have to do the same thing. So that means we would fold this in this direction to put our top stitch here. So if we folded that, if we folded it back and put the top stitch over here, it just wouldn't match on each side. So we just got to make sure we keep everything uniform. It's just, when it comes to the sewing, it's always the little things and the order of operations. They're the two biggest things. You don't want to mix something up, and if you do one thing before the other, you can screw up your whole project and have to start completely over. I've done it all the time and will continue to do it as long as I'm doing this. That's just part of it. So back over to the sewing machine. I'm putting this like right by my face, so if you hear me breathing, just try to ignore it. All right, let's take a look at that. See, that's what I was doing. So once he's got that on his leg, that looks more like a real pair of pants, don't it? So now what we have to do is sew them together. So you want to put them inside out. Make sure that's... So for this one, with the one with the fly, I'm only going to do it up to the fly, and then I'll glue it over, because I don't want to cover up that fly. If I sewed it up through here, it would just sew and hide the fly. So I'm just going to go up to it. These may end up being a little snug. And when that happens, you just gotta redo it. That's part of it. I think I can live with that. By the time we put all this stuff on, find those holes. Yeah, that'll work for me. All right, so next stop, we gotta paint these pants. Better yet, I wanna wait and paint everything at once, as well as this, without having to clean up paint method. Anyway, so let's go ahead and make the pattern for this top. I'm not gonna go crazy with measuring and all. I'm just gonna simplify it. Put it about right there. This is not how I normally make patterns, by the way, but this thing is just, it's gonna be so cut up and covered up that I'm not that concerned with it. Just wanna see what my outline can be. So say, let's go that way. Down to about right here. And this is a stretch material, so I don't have to be very accurate as far as everything goes. And honestly, this is probably going to be too big as it is. So let's come up to there. So I have no idea what this is. I could not tell you, but it has these nice ribs in it that are visible. This is an old fabric I had when I first started doing customs. So this is what I'm going to use because the reference material, it has these ribs on it. So that's what we're going with. All right, skip some of the boring stuff. Put this together. Just kind of doing a piecemeal. I still have to cut away these areas just so this will fit together, but you get the idea. It's got the ribs in there. Let's see if I can zoom in. It's got it on the neck as well. Just gotta, you can see there's a few spots in here that needs to be cut up just so this will fit. But all in all, I'd say it worked out pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna prep for the paint. I'm gonna start off with burnt umber. And I'm just gonna saturate it. Just mix around, play with it. Then what I like to do is dry it, but first I like to crumble it, roll it, twist it all up. Wrinkles, I want it to look lived in. I want it to look like a pair of pants. You know, especially for something that a soldier's gonna be wearing. It's not gonna be crisp, it's not gonna be clean, straight lines. They're gonna be roughed up a little bit. Paint, we usually have this material pretty stiff, but it's all right. That's what I want. I want those wrinkles to stand out and kind of stay there. And I'm still not at the color I want. I'm trying to wonder. I'm gonna go in. So I've got a sepia paint, but I've got the sepia ink, and to both be sepia, I think they are different colors. All right, same thing, just roll it up. Okay, I've done most of the painting, so I'm just gonna do most of the assembling, and then I'll jump back into getting some other stuff painted, you know, the boots, hands. I left some of the details out, you know, painting this black. Weathering, so I want to do all that once the figure's actually together. So I'm just gonna do some assembling. And here he is completed. This is the 12th scale Bandai Shoretrooper model kit. I skipped the whole painting, detail painting part. I haven't quite figured out my camera system to get it where I can paint the details without, I mean, when I paint this thing, usually right in my face. But as you can see, you know, I did the sponge technique on a lot of the corners. You know, such as here, you just take a piece of sponge, you pluck a little piece off, dip it in the paint, and I usually use tweezers. You'll go in and just kind of dab away at it very lightly. I didn't want to go crazy on the weathering. I used the book as a guide pretty much. I just copied basically what was in that book, what was weathered, what was scratched. Here you can see I mixed some of the base coat and just did the same thing with the sponge technique, so it goes like it's worn paint, just to take away from the crisp lines, such as here, there on the corner, here in the blue. And I did it with I didn't use black. Black was too stark. With all these, I used the German gray from Vallejo. It was more realistic tone to me. And then when I was painting the boots, I had some extra brown left in the thing, so I went over, you know, lightly with some brown around the legs, a little bit on the little plastic comma here. Went in with some gray, and then I actually scratched off some of this so that it, you know, looks painted. And I wanted like to look like, you know, the primer was showing underneath here. So I did that. The weapon, I went real detail with it. I used detail brushes instead of just dry brushing the whole thing like I see a lot of people do. I looked at the reference material, and these parts were silver. Let's get in focus here. Yeah, these parts were silver. So I did the dry brush technique, but just in very select spots. And then I went in with the detail brush and detailed some of these scratches just based off, you know, the reference picture in that book that we looked at earlier. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Glued them all together after that, and there he is. I'm going to make I have another kit as well, and I'm just going to make, this one's the captain. I'm going to make one that's not the captain. He'll have the little ammo pouch and the leather belt, and no blue, just the same base color all the way around. Anyway, that's going to be that. You can check that out on my Instagram, doormat_studios. Appreciate you watching. Thanks. Have a good one.